Independent National Election Commission of Madagascar has unveiled the provisional results of the parliamentary elections of May 27th. While waiting for the confirmation from the High Constitutional Court, these results already offer a majority to the President of the Republic, Andry Rajoelina. In Mali again, the price of fuel has increased in the last few days. The liter of petrol has increased from 702 CFA francs to 715 in Bamako. At the moment, no official communication has been made on this issue. Despite suspicions of corruption a few hours before the launch of the African Cup of Nations in Egypt, President Ahmed remains head of the Confederation of African Football for at least 6 months, but under the supervision of the International Federation of Football Association. These are our top stories. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. During his visit to France to meet with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron, the President of the Republic of Madagascar, Andry Rajoelina, had then announced his victory without waiting for the officialization of the results of the legislative elections in his country. It is now done at the end of the compilation of all the results that gives him an absolute majority in parliament. With 84 out of 151 seats in parliament, Andry Rajoelina outruns his main opponent and former President Marc Ravalomanana, who obtained only 16 seats. The remaining 51 seats were only won by independent candidates. While it is important for the Malagasy president to have a majority at the National Assembly, though the voter turnout is less than 40%, a vote largely ignored by the Malagasy. 5 months after his victory in the second round of the presidential election, it is a boulevard offered to the President of Malagasy Republic to implement his policy and important reforms promised during his various campaigns. All this would certainly be possible with the renewal of the parliament, which will soon be composed of only one chamber, since the current president is considering abolishing the Senate, which would free up funds for higher education in his country. Andry Rajoelina now has a comfortable margin to carry out the reforms promised to the Malagasy during the presidential election and set up his program initiative to the development of Madagascar. This majority will also allow the president to work with a prime minister coming from his presidential movement. The only downside for the presidential movement is having lost the capital, Antananarivo, at the expense of the TIM party or the former head of state, Marc Ravalomanana. In Mali, since June 14, 2019, customers have noticed a fuel increase at filling stations. According to the new pricing, the price of gasoline has increased by 13 CFA francs, from 702 to 715 CFA francs a litre. This situation will certainly have repercussions on other consumer products, since it is known that an increase of fuel prices always has a direct impact on the cost of consumer products through the rise in lorry fares. This will compel car owners, including motorbikes, to turn to lawless dealers who are everywhere, at every corner, as it is done more frequently in Bamako, in front of houses, in markets, or next to schools. The installation of small petrol stations and sales outlets is today in flagrant violation of the rules of safety, hygiene, and health. The fuel sold in the street is of poor quality due to the bottling process of the product. The petrol is packaged in unclean cans and barrels. Consequently, the product mixes systematically with dirt. As a result, several cases of malfunction of two-wheeled vehicles comes from dirty fuel. For the moment, the reason for this increase is unknown. Finance ministers and central bank governors from 15 West African countries meeting in Abidjan on 17th and 18th of June expressed their strong desire to create a single currency to be effective in 2020 to replace the CFA franc. The West African countries have therefore agreed to adopt a single currency from 2020. It remained to know what the name of the currency will be, but ECO will be its name. The name was agreed upon by the International Committee of Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors of the area, who met on Monday and Tuesday in Abidjan. Considered as a sea snake which has for 30 years been spoken about, the single currency of ECOWAS would replace the CFA franc and 7 other national currencies, which are not convertible among them, making trade difficult within ECOWAS. The management of the single currency should be entrusted to a federal central bank and its exchange rate should be flexible, according to the report adopted by the International Committee. The major funders insisted on the importance of strengthening the macroeconomic convergence of 15 countries. Respect for the timetable for the implementation of the single currency will depend on the efforts of each country in this area. Although optimistic, Adama Kone, Ivorian Minister of Economy and Finance, notes that there are still challenges to overcome, but without specifying the nature. The findings of this report will be submitted to ECOWAS heads of states and government at their next summit in Abuja on 29th of June. For the first time under the Fifth Republic, a former president will be tried for corruption. The Supreme Court dismissed the latest appeals by former head of state, his lawyer, and former high magistrate to avoid a trial for bribery and influence peddling. While Nicolas Sarkozy will be on trial for the first time under the Fifth Republic, the former president is not through yet. For another issue known as the Big Million Affair is coming up, and the trial should be held in Paris in the coming months. Nicolas Sarkozy, a political retiree since his defeat at the primary in 2016, was suspected following investigations in early 2014 of having tried to obtain secret information in a procedure concerning the seizure of his diaries in the Betancourt affair through his lawyer in exchange for a promotion to a prestigious position in Monte Carlo. The affair, which had a year earlier ended in mistrial. At the end of the investigation, enameled with numerous appeals, the judges had ordered on March 26, 2018, a trial for corruption and influence peddling, in accordance with the requisition of the Public Prosecutor's Office in October 2017. The High Court had also examined in a quick procedure the appeals of Nicolas Sarkozy to challenge their referral to the criminal court. The court later rejected them, which confirmed the trial, according to a source familiar with the case and one of the defense lawyers. The case originated in wiretapping by the former head of state in another investigation that of allegations on Libyan financing of his 2007 campaign. Thanks to these wiretaps, the investigators had noticed that the former president and his lawyer used to communicate through cell phones under a false identity, including that of Paul Bismuth for Sarkozy. A few hours before the launch of the 2019 African Cup of Nations in Egypt, Ahmed Ahmed, the president of the Confederation of African Football, remains under close surveillance. In a statement made at the press conference opening prior to the African Cup of Nations, the Confederation of African Football announced the appointment of FIFA Secretary General Fatma Samoura as Africa's General Delegate from 1st of August. At the head of the Confederation since March 2017, Ahmed Ahmed was arrested on the 6th of June in Paris by the Anti-Corruption Office of the Judicial Police. He was set free and without prosecution of his detention a few hours after his arrest. During the press conference at the Cairo Stadium, President Ahmed explained the rumors that were going down well following his arrest. The arrest took place after a judicial investigation in Marseille for association of criminals, corruption, breach of confidence, for forgery and fraud. The Independent National Election Commission of Madagascar has unveiled the provisional results of the parliamentary elections of May 27th. While waiting for the confirmation from the High Constitutional Court, these results already offer a majority to the President of the Republic, Andry Rajoelina. In Mali again, the price of fuel has increased in the last few days. The liter of petrol has increased from 702 CFA francs to 715 in Bamako. At the moment, no official communication has been made on this issue. Despite suspicions of corruption a few hours before the launch of the African Cup of Nations in Egypt, President Ahmed Ahmed remains head of the Confederation of African Football for at least 6 months, but under the supervision of the International Federation of Football Association. That's all for our newscast today. Stay tuned on Gabon 24 for more news.